As a person who thrives off creativity and individuality, stories have always been my way of escaping to faraway places, or places not so far from home. I cannot begin to tell you how many stories I've read or heard, but never have I told a large group of people a story of my own. My story begins not too long ago in the Baltimore airport, watching planes take off and land and people chatter about this, that, or something else. I was waiting for the flight to Tampa, which had been delayed, and over the music buzzing through my headphones, I hear my dad chuckle. Being a very logical and science-based person, my dad chuckles at very select topics. And being the nosy person that I am, I looked over at my dad, and he simply handed me the newspaper and told me to read the article. The title read something along the lines of how a bronze statue of the Lorax was stolen from the home of the Dr. Seuss's widow. Now, if you know anything about the Lorax, he was a character created by Dr. Seuss who speaks for the trees. In other words, he represents the protection of the environment and the conservation of our natural resources. As a kid, it was a rare sight to see me without any sort of animal. Whether it be capturing a bug or holding the tarantula that our nature class in school owned, I was always getting into some sort of animal-related mischief. For a few years, I tempted my parents into getting me a pet snake or lizard. Instead, I got a cat. Not that I don't love my cat, but my true fascination at a young age was with reptiles and other aquatic animals. No matter where we went on vacation, if there was an aquarium, then the Kronheims would most certainly be there. If you know me now, I will persistently remind you of my hatred for dolphins. But when I was little, dolphins were more than fascinating to me. You can say they were my gateway to sharks. I can tell you about a time where I spent the night at an aquarium for some sort of YMCA trip. We slept right in front of the tank full of sharks and other intriguing fish. And when I say we slept there, I mean everyone except for me. I spent the whole night awake, my eyes glued to the animals and sharks swimming in the tank. But my parents wouldn't let me get a dolphin or a manatee and would scoff at my idea of a pet shark. Their solution to shutting my mouth about obtaining enough animals to own a zoo was to put me on a horse. Riding horses has always been a given for me. I cannot remember the first time I was on one because I was so little. If you ask my mother, she'll undoubtedly show you a picture of a very small, chubby version of myself, sitting on a pony named Whiskey, wearing a jean jacket, with my hands placed behind the saddle, hair poking out of my helmet, and an expression on my face that clearly said I owned the place. If you know any rider, you know that riding isn't as easy as it looks. Other than the joy given to the rider from the simple interaction with an animal that doesn't care who you are, how much money you have, what you look like, horses teach us patience and kindness. My parents and trainer were incredible enough to buy me a horse named Romeo, who has not only taught me to be a better rider, but he has also taught me how to care for others. So now, imagine my parents' surprise when I tell them that horses aren't enough. I needed another way to get in touch with animals and learn more about not only what I wanted to do in life, but more about myself. So when I brought up the idea of studying sharks to my parents, they weren't entirely shocked. They had already known about my love for all things marine life, and they could assume from my attachment to animals that this would just be another phase. It's been about 3 or so years now since I decided that sharks were undoubtedly the coolest things ever, and my parents have finally decided that this is not just a phase. Summer of my freshman year, I went to my final month of summer camp. My best friend from Camp Whitney told me about her application to go to a place called the Island School for a term of her school year. My immediate thoughts were, school on an island? What could be better? So coming home from camp, I brought the idea up to my parents, who shook their heads and denied any possibility of me getting a sunburn whilst trying to learn about World War II or the Pythagorean theorem. Instead, I came to Oldfields. If you had known me my first year here, I was possibly the most negative, grumpy, angry, and unpleasant person to be around. I did not want to be here. I wanted to be studying on an island on the outskirts of the Caribbean. When I brought up the idea to my parents about going to the island school for a summer program rather than a whole 3 months, the idea appeared more appealing to them. Well, at least to my dad. My mom had questions like where it was, who was going to be there, what I was going to do, and if I would contract some god-awful disease or parasite. I had nobody else to thank but Mr. Smith and Miss Eaton for convincing my worriedful mother that yes, the island school is indeed a safe place. So it was agreed I would attend the island school and work with the Cape Eleuthera Institute in the Bahamas the summer of my junior year. My father barely stopped the car at the airport, and I sped my way through security. I was launched into a week of studying the physiological stress of juvenile lemon sharks and mature Caribbean reef sharks in capture situations. Little did I know that I would not only learn how important sharks are to our oceans, but how important they are to my own understanding of what I care about and what I'm willing to do to protect people and animals that I love. There are still some animals I don't love and could certainly do without. For instance, I could happily go the rest of my life without laying eyes on another gigantic black-colored moth the size of my hand that fluttered around our rooms at night. I came home terrified of all butterfly moth-like things. I did love the self-sustaining campus, though it too presented some challenges. Water came from rainwater collected in large containers, and our electricity came from wind and solar power. One fan's energy consumption was equivalent to 3 days of light for the campus. We frequently had fruits and veggies that were grown in the garden. Our food waste fed the pigs and chickens, whose waste was then used to fertilize the garden. Nothing on this campus went unused. We would wake up at 6 a.m. for morning exercise, which basically meant biking to go cliff diving or playing an intense game of water polo. We had morning chores, ate breakfast with the community, and then set off into the saltwater for the day. Most of you must be thinking, oh, what a great opportunity to tan and get some color. That wasn't the case. When out in the sun from 8 in the morning till around 4 in the afternoon, the last thing you want is the sun soaking away all your energy. We were required to wear long-sleeve shirts, hats, and an insane amount of sunscreen that I am more than grateful for. We were split into 2 groups of 4 for our shark research. I must say my group was a little bit odd, but the one thing that connected us was our love for learning about these incredible animals. Our first day fishing for sharks, we put out a line and let it sit for an hour or so. In that time, we were given the opportunity to swim off the drop-off. Those who have seen Finding Nemo, the drop-off looks pretty much like it does in the film. You are able to dive down a little ways and then swim off the ledge. The depth of the sea went from around 100 feet to thousands of feet, all at once. It was terrifying, and you realize how small you truly are. All at once, you are surrounded by deep blue, and the only thing you can see is the ledge of the ocean floor until it turns into darkness. The world is much bigger than we think or see from our viewpoint on land. There are no words for the feeling you experience out there, floating in the middle of the vast blue darkness of the ocean. When we returned to our lines and checked for sharks, we pulled the hooks up one by one, discovering creatures. First, it was just a hook that we pulled up. Then the second hook came up with a 3.5-foot long, very disgruntled barracuda, who promptly bared its teeth at us, demanding we release him, which we most certainly did. What came up on our third hook took my breath away. My friend Brian and I watched as our research professors pulled the line up to the boat, and a dark beige silhouette appeared below us. A few moments later, Owen and Clark had worked up this incredible shark along the side of the boat. She was a little over 6 feet long, clearly a mother, and had never been tagged. This Caribbean reef shark was, needless to say, incredible. You might think me to be insane, but being so close to this animal was the most incredible thing I've experienced. As we measured, tagged, drew blood, and handled this shark, it was impossible not to notice the sheer power of her body. Sharks are muscle, all power, all predator. These animals are the epitome of evolutionary and predatory perfection. Their only predator is us. It is said that roughly 73 million sharks are killed every year for finning, sport, and just as bycatch, or being caught on accident when fishing for other types of fish. The number of humans killed by shark attacks each year average out around 3. And those 3 people die mainly because of blood loss from puncture wounds, not because the shark actually ate the person. Crocodiles and alligators have killed more people in a year than sharks have killed in the last 100. And yet crocodiles and alligators are protected in some areas. Flying to a foreign country alone and dealing with these incredible predators, I have been able to make a difference in the conservation of sharks. Even though we only made a small dent in our research of sharks living in the Bahamas, it still counts for something. It's not that hard to take a chance to help you get to where you want to be. you can make a difference in your own life, other people's lives, and even make a difference in the very ecosystems we depend on by ensuring the well-being of animals. In the story of the Lorax, Dr. Seuss says, "Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not." I'm proud to say my name is Catherine Kronheim, and I'm a 3%.